There are several different communication contexts that we find ourselves in as human beings. Whether it be talking one-on-one with people, talking in large groups to many people, or even at times talking with people through social media. But I think one communication context that people don't discuss enough, or maybe just doesn't get that much attention, is our intrapersonal communication. The communication that we have with ourselves. So you may be thinking, how does the self relate to communication? Well, that's a good question. First, we need to understand self-concept. Self-concept is our perceived self. Think of it as the total sense of who you are as a person. So all these characteristics, maybe you're the athlete, or the jokester, or the brain, those are becoming a part of your self-concept. Additionally, your self-esteem is a part of your self-concept. If you feel positively or negatively about some aspect of who you are. Keep in mind that your perception of self affects communication, and communication will affect your sense of self. Now, how you develop your sense of self early on is by sensing your environment. Think of babies. One of the first things they start to do is start to taste and smell and touch things. They try to get a sense of what's around them. Think about when a baby realizes for the very first time that that foot they've been trying to reach is their foot. You'll see them smile, you see them giggle, you see them get really excited about the foot. Because they realize, hey, that's my foot. That's not my mom. That's not my dad. That's not something that's in here with me like a toy. That's my foot. And that's one of their first experience of sensing who they are as a person compared to everyone around them. Also think about parental communication. Now we've all heard stories about parents who have given their children great encouragement, and in return, their children go on to do great things. But we've also heard those negative talks about students, about children who have heard everything from you'll never amount to anything to you're just like your no good mom or dad, and it negatively impacts them. But also think about others' communication. Think about your communication with your peers as you've grown up. Think about communication with social media, pop culture, and how those have affected you. Your values, beliefs, and attitudes have probably been shaped in some way from your parents and your peers. Our self-concepts are quite multifaceted. There are times where you are called on to be the son or daughter, the father or mother, the employee, the best friend, the student, the leader, and in each and every single situation, a different side of who you are, a different version of the self, comes out. Just like when you walk into a funhouse and you see the mirrors tilted just a certain way or contorted a certain way, and you see a different way of looking at your face or your body. Self-concept also has those different ways of seeing itself differently based on the role that it takes on. Be mindful that your self-concept is quite subjective. It's going to be shaped by your own opinions. Therefore, you already have a natural bias to see yourself in a very positive light. Also, keep in mind that your self-concept can endure over time. The way I see myself today is also based on how I saw myself yesterday. There are certain parts of who I am where I have to be mindful, oh, that's something I can trace all the way back to my childhood. I've always seen myself as someone who is academically achieving and trying to be the smartest person I can be and learn more and more. And because of that, I still see myself in that way. But your self-concept can also change. For me, one part of my self-concept that has changed has been my ability to speak in front of groups. When I was younger, I struggled with my speaking. I could not talk so clearly, and furthermore, people could not understand me very clearly. And I heard some very negative things. I was told some very negative things. Told that I would not be successful in anything that would involve speaking. And so I internalized that. It took a while and it took time for that to change. And now I teach speech communication. Go figure. Regardless of how your self-concept has endured or changed over time, we all want people to have a positive impression of us. This leads us into the idea of face work. Face work are the behaviors that we exhibit to create and maintain the positive perception of ourselves to others. No one wants to be seen in a bad light. We all want to be seen in a positive way. Face work just means that we're putting in the work to make sure that happens. When you think about fellowship face, it's all the effort that we put into making sure that people like us and respect us. So being friendly to strangers is a form of fellowship face. If we do something mean or we do something disrespectful, we usually apologize for it. Because again, we're trying to make sure and show people that we are likable, that we are respectable. And if I have that one mistake, that one time, it does not mean that I'm a horrible person. We also have competence face, which is the effort to show that we are experts on different subjects. In some way, I feel like competence face is probably what people get a little bit nervous about when it comes to giving a speech, especially if it's a speech topic that you've done research on. No one wants to look like the idiot in front of the room or like they don't know their stuff. We all want to look competent, right? So, when we're asked questions that we may not be sure about, when we are put in positions where we have to be the expert, it makes us nervous. It may threaten our face work when it comes to our competence face. And then there's autonomy face. So autonomy face is the perception that we can do things on our own. And we wanted to avoid anyone else making decisions for us. Think of your typical teenager here. They don't want mom and dad making decisions for them anymore, right? They want to do things on their own. They want to make sure that people see them as their own person. In the individualistic culture, autonomy face is even a larger part of self-concept. Because, again, you're thinking about yourself, thinking about the me of all of this. Now, with all of this face work comes face threats. And these are those behaviors that threaten some part of our identity. Whether it's someone saying something to us and we respond negatively and we hurt their feelings. Well, that would be a face threat to our fellowship face. We all want people to like us, right? It's really hard to like the person who just said something mean. Or if we say the wrong answer, then that threatens our competence face. Or if someone makes a decision for us instead of with us, that can threaten our autonomy face. As human beings, we all try to either avoid face threats or minimize face threats. So if we have to go through them, we deal with them as quickly as possible. Then we have image management. Image management refers to the process of coordinating the presentation of our self-concept with various groups in different situations. What do I mean by this? Go back to the idea of making a good first impression. That maybe you have a nice interview and you put a nice suit on. You clean your hair, you clean your teeth, you practice beforehand. You are managing the image that someone will have of you by doing all these things, all this face work to make yourself look competent. Now, when it comes to being competent, when it comes to the overall perception, be aware that you need to self-monitor. Self-monitoring is just simply the degree to which you are aware of how others perceive you. I always go back to the student who didn't realize that she had a resting frowny face all semester long. And so she had to start self-monitoring a little bit more to see, people think I'm mean because I have this angry face all the time. There are people who are low self-monitors and people who are high self-monitors. If you are a low self-monitor, you usually tend to speak without thinking. You don't think about how the other person may feel based on what you have to say. But if you're a high self-monitor, you're very aware of how others perceive you. Think about, well, will this sound appropriate? Will they take this in the right way? Also be mindful to perception check. So in any situation, when you have the opportunity to check your perceptions, do so. It could be that this person hurt their ankle. Or it could be that their shoe is too tight. It could be that this person tripped. If you did not see the full situation or understand the full situation, perception checking really does help you break down the different pieces. Step 1, you describe the behavior. What do you see happening? What do you notice going on in the situation? Then you start to suggest different interpretations. Based solely on the behavior, solely on the actions involved, what would be other interpretations for this? Then you seek verification. Keep in mind that your goal is simply to understand more accurately. One way I perception check is with my sister. I noticed that she slammed the trunk door really, really hard. And I thought, okay, well, I think she's angry, but let me check my perception. What happened? Trunk door went down and made a very loud sound. Her face looks like it's frowning. What are some interpretations for those particular behaviors? Well, maybe she didn't just slam it. Maybe it just sounded really loud because she closed it hard to make sure it closed. Or maybe she's not frowning because she's upset. Maybe she's tired. Or maybe that's just her face that day. And then you seek verification. This is when I would actually ask, hey, are you okay? What's going on? And it could be that, yes, she was angry. And in that situation, she was. But it could be that the sun was in her eyes and she was squinting. And what looked like a frown to me was actually her face squinting from the sunlight. Or maybe she had something very heavy in her hands. And so when she slammed the trunk down, she just was still pumped up on all that adrenaline of carrying something heavy. So when it comes to being a more aware, competent communicator, actively check your perceptions. When you get angry with that person who cut you off in traffic, well, start suggesting, why would this person do this? Do they mean to cut me off? Maybe they have to get somewhere very quickly. Maybe they have to go to the bathroom. Maybe there's an emergency. Maybe they didn't see me. Start to recognize your own biases, especially if you have a bias that you know affects other people. And then also admit misperceptions and change if needed. So don't just say, oh, I have a bias. Go ahead and make sure that you understand those misperceptions can be changed. So this concludes Chapter 3, Perception and the Self.